Hello and welcome to the Men's Lifeline. My name is Zach Goodman, and today I got Jae Cho on the podcast. Jay is a therapist, and he's come all the way across all the lands from Korea to be here. He moved when he was a young boy. He's been in the United States, and he became a citizen in 2017. And Jay, he is a therapist, and he has an incredible story to tell us today. So, Jay, why don't you tell us a little about us? And by the way, Jay's my best friend. We went to school together and we've known each other for a long time. So, Jay, I'm so glad to have you on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Who's Jae Cho?
Yeah. So I was originally born in Korea, Seoul, and I was born and raised there. And when I was around 10, 11 years old, my dad wanted to study. So we actually, my family, my parents, my younger brother and I actually moved to Florida. I think I was 10, 11 years old. We moved to Tallahassee, which is the capital of Florida. So I lived there about 4 years, give or take. And then in 2007, actually, we actually moved to Michigan because my dad got a job at Michigan State University. Then we moved there, and I spent most of my life there. I went to high school there. I went to Michigan State, got my psychology degree, graduated in 15. And then I went immediately back for my master's program. And that's actually where I met Jack, actually, is there. And after I graduated, I wanted to work with kids. So I actually worked in a school setting, public school setting, as a school social worker, providing services like students who struggle with anxiety, depression, that interfere with their school. I worked there for a little bit. And then in 2020, when the COVID hit, my wife wanted to move to Utah, actually, to be close with her family. So we moved to Utah. And now I've been here for about 4 years now. And as of now, I don't work in school. I still work with kids, but not in school. I work at the hospital setting, like outpatient. And I also have my own private practice on the side.
So, in this podcast, we really talk about like men who kind of struggle to overcome something. So, what was like a personal struggle of you to lead you to become like first a school social worker, especially as a school social worker, and then to become a therapist? Like, what kind of led you? What personal struggle led you to become on that path?
Yeah, so I was working in school for a while, about 3 years, and I felt like I I think I was confident enough, but I felt like I was making challenges, like, hey, so I already know what I'm doing kind of thing, right? And I felt like I could do something more. And I think with school, while being a school social worker is great, I felt like I couldn't really get to the root of the problem about why students are struggling because we didn't really don't have time to dive into it, right? And I was really nervous actually to transition from working in a school setting to a therapist because it's a completely different, it's a different thing. But I decided to make a leap of faith and just try out, see if I like it, and I love it. So that's why I'm still here.
No, that's awesome. So you kind of could have been a school social worker probably for the rest of your life,
Yeah.
but you decided to brace uncomfort, and that's where, as we know, as therapists, that's how you really grow is when you face something uncomfortable. So kind of tell us a little bit more about that discomfort, that nervousness going from a school social worker to a therapist. Because like you said, when we're in the school settings, you don't really have, it's not really your role to solve all the problems and get to the root issues with a lot of the kids.
Right.
And that's where, and talking to a few other school social workers, that's where a lot of the struggle is because there's so much that goes on that people don't realize, things at home, things that they're trying to learn, and just how to interact socially, especially with COVID and different things of that nature. So tell us a little bit more about that kind of struggle to make that decision.
Yeah, so I know that COVID hit, and I was thinking about, okay, so I've done what I've done for the past couple of years, why I think that I made a really good difference. I felt like I was way too comfortable in my role, meaning like I felt like I wasn't as excited to go to work to try new things, learn new things, because I think I had tried it enough of it. So I was confident. But at the same time, I felt like there was no challenges. Like there's no new learning for me that's taking place.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like, man, if I do this, I'll be comfortable. Like I know what I'm doing. I'm good at what I do. I thought, right? And I could do this for a while. At the same time, am I really going to enjoy this? Right? Am I really going to look forward to every day when I wake up and try new things? And and at the end, I realized my answer was no, that I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. That's why they said, okay, even though it's really uncomfortable for me, I have to learn, right? That's why I started really learning a lot more different skills I can use in individual therapy so that I can transition to well.
No, I think that's incredible because that's one thing you don't really hear about, and we focus on men on this podcast, men taking a lot of risk. Before this, I was editing a video, and one of the biggest things that people really talk about is, there's going to be no perfect plan. And everyone waits for that perfect opportunity where everything, all the dice, all the planets, whatever is aligned. But really, the one thing that they lack is taking that step forward. So did you consult anybody? Did you talk to anyone about helping you make a decision?
Yeah, I was.
Make a decision going from schools to being a therapist. I mean, it's a completely one. You kind of lose your summers. I mean, that's one.
Yeah, I know we get summer breaks, but I remember talking to my wife about it, and she's like, "Hey, you know what? You should do whatever you should to make you happy." I mean, yeah. I think, but the question actually that she asked, I think, really helped me. I think was the question, "Hey, so like 5 years from now, when you're still working in school social work, would you still like if you look back? Sorry, so if you look back, right, or 5 years being school social work, right, after you've been in for a couple of years." Would you feel like you achieved something? Would you feel like you actually done something? And would you have any regrets about staying as school social worker for the next 5 years when you look back on it again? And I'm like, and that's what really got me thinking, will I regret staying in social work like for the next 5 years, school social work for the next 5 years? And my answer was probably no.
Wow. So you're really introspect and really look within yourself. Would I be satisfied? Would I be happy 5 years from now? So being a therapist now and having transitioned to that role, do you now feel like you're making more of a difference, like you have more time? Because I know with schools, we only have half hour to really like 40 minutes with the kids and taking classes and everything, and don't always have that time to help them really focus on anxiety, depression, or a breakup that they're going through. So do you feel like you have more time now to really get to the deep issues?
Yeah, because usually I have like 50 minutes or more per client, right? Mm-hmm. And I think with school, I think you get 50 shots. Sometimes kids really want to work with you. Sometimes kids want nothing to do with you, right? They're like a motivation. Right. But I think in my role, most of the clients who come to me are actually really motivated to learn. And I feel like if you're motivated to change, right, motivated to overcome your obstacles, then I can be a lot more help and I can give a lot more, go deep into it, whether that's like learning new skills to do with anxiety, depression, or maybe it's like a motivation. And so how we build a motivation is really seems to help my clients a lot.
So what are some key factors that a client, a consumer is like, my life's been in shambles and this is the moment I'm ready to really listen and make some changes in my life? And how do you kind of assess for that, knowing that someone's really ready?
Yeah, so in therapy model, we talk about a lot about is it the change, right? To change the model, like whether state of change, right? Whether you actually ready to change or not. And usually when people go in therapy, they're more on the fence of, okay, I know that I need to change, but do I really want to change? What's the benefits of changing? And the next step is, okay, I'm ready to change, but I don't know how to change, right? I think if there are those two stages, and I think it can really be helpful. If people say, I want to change, but I'm not sure if I want to change, what's the benefit of it? Then I can go pros and cons. Well, let's see, like changes, like where you're right now, like, are you happy? If the answer is no, then I know it's a list changing, right? I know it's uncomfortable. Like you've done this for this way of thinking for a long time. I really want to change. Let's look at the pros at that. And if clients say, hey, I know I want to change, but I don't know how to change, like give me some skill, then I can be more helpful in that way too, like teaching them skills.
So for those who don't know, can you explain to us what are the stages of change?
Yeah, so state of change is basically as 4 modules, right? The first process is when clients are not ready to change at all, and they don't want to change. I think someone will struggle with that. Like, even though people might be saying, "Hey, you should change," I'm like, "No, why would I change?" Right? And the second model is, okay, maybe I realize there's a problem, right? In order for you to change, you first have to accept that there's a problem, right? But then not sure if they want to change. And number three, right, is, okay, I want to change. I'm ready, but I just don't know how. And number four is fully ready, like actually using skills. And number five is called maintenance, meaning that you already made the changes and you're continuing and you continue with the change and not looking back.
Okay, so really it's you kind of start off at first with maybe like a pre-contemplation stage where they're not sure if they want to go contemplation, like maybe I'm kind of ready to go. Preparation, okay, done my pros and cons, I'm ready to change. Then we get into the action, like let's do it, Jay. You're my therapist, help me out, teach me, save me, man, I need your help.
Yeah.
And then on their own, having that means that, okay, now I got this, I got the skills.
Right.
So when you're helping someone go through all those different stages of change, what is kind of like helpful for them to realize kind of like, that people want to improve? And because I never know of anyone who says, yep, I'm good the way I am, because there's always that inner calling to be better, right? That inner calling to survive and to thrive and do the best that you can. So what is like kind of like some therapy techniques like that you've mastered, that you're still mastering, that really helps someone recognize that things are more skills and strategies, especially when they're trying to cope with some mental health challenges, whether it be depression, anxiety, social adjustments, things like that. So what are some things that you do that kind of really helps someone work through all those stages? Because they take time. It's not a linear process, as a lot of people like to think.
Usually what I like to say is, okay, so give me something you're struggling. That's anxiety, for example, right? Or depression. And I really want to dive into, okay, has anxiety, depression served you in any way? Meaning that I think that anxiety and depression, like while it's annoying, right? It's really, people really struggle with it. At the same time, I feel like they serve a purpose. They serve a function, right? So for example, anxiety means a threat. You sense a threat in your life.
Right.
Depression might be you're grieving, right? Or maybe you are comparing yourself to other people and realize that you're not like them and you're way behind. Whatever the grieving process might be, I help my clients see the function behind it and why. Because in order to change, in order to actually lose skills like anxiety, depression, and make changes in their lives so that they're less anxious, depressed, and change, I feel like they first have to understand where the anxiety, depression come from. So I really dive into the function behind it. So for example, maybe you're really anxious about talking to people, right? Okay, why? Is it because you feel like when you make a mistake, people make fun of you? Is it when you feel like you talk and you made a mistake and people will judge you for it, right? What's the function behind it? So that they can understand, okay, this is what my anxiety, depression is doing, and it's no longer helpful. So I think when they see that it's no longer helpful, even though they think it's helpful, usually it's not, right? Then they're able to let go. And I think move on, I think it's more faster, more effectively if they understand why they have it.
Oh, sure. So you kind of dive deeper into the function, like what is this behavior? What is this mindset, whether it be an adaptive coping skill, something that works, or maladaptive coping skill that maybe not the greatest, but is still helping to solve a problem and trying to help them figure out how to best reach a better solution with the current circumstances that they face.
Yeah, and also if they don't want to change, if the preparation stage, or contemplation stage, okay, what is holding you back? Like, why do you not want to change? Is it because it's uncomfortable? Is it because you've done this for a while and this is the only way you know, kind of thing? I also go with that too, like what is holding you back from making changes?
No, that's a good answer. So, and kind of focusing on men, where have you kind of seen a lot of men kind of struggling from a therapeutic standpoint?
Yeah, I think usually with men, it's probably a lot depression, I think.
Okay.
Because I feel like most men feel like, oh, I have to do this kind of like, because society say, hey, you have to be strong, right? You have to take care of your family, you have to provide and everything, A, B, C, and D. And I feel like I think most of us men, I think at times we feel like, oh man, I'm doing all this thing. At the same time, they probably feel like they're not good enough, right? They're not doing enough, I feel like. So I think that's some of the struggle the men struggle with most is like depression. Because most people, because we don't really talk about depression with men a lot.
Yeah. So where do you have a lot of men clients?
Yeah, about 50% of the clients, I would say, are males.
Okay, so about half. And
Yeah.
so do most of them kind of have that like struggle with not being able to provide? Because I know in today's time with how inflation is, how social media is and want to be liked and all that roles, what do you see as like a barrier to men actually still seeking out help? Because I know there's still that stigma for a man to even seek out help, or I mean, it's still a stigma for men to even be able to shed a few tears. I mean, you see that all over. Like, you should only
Yeah.
cry either at someone's funeral or your wedding. Other than that, kind of suck it up.
Yeah, it's basically exactly that. A lot of clients who come to me for help, they often say, hey, so I've been trying to express my emotions like depression, like anger, shame, but I don't know how. And only way I know how is from what I saw in other people, which is usually screaming, yelling, or just drinking, right? Like a
Right.
substance and just shoving it down, not really feeling it. So I think most men come to me not knowing how to express their emotions and how to name it. I think that's usually, I think part of society too, right? So.
No, I think that's helpful because a lot of times people know the emotion, but they can't describe the emotion. If you want to do like the emotion color wheel, right? The primary
Right.
emotion would be anger, but then you realize there's other emotions beneath anger. They get to the true heart and the true problem at hand. So how do you help a man kind of begin to identify those emotions, to identify the function of their behavior and their skill set at this time?
Yeah, usually what I ask them to do first is actually notice your body sensation because your
Okay.
body sensation reacts faster than your thoughts or your
Right.
feelings. So, for example, maybe it's anger you want to work on. Just when you feel anger, usually your fist is tightening, right? And then you have a tension in your shoulders, your body's heated up. Or anxiety is often chest tightness, like pit in the stomach, lump in the throat. So I would suggest actually focus on your body sensation and see what you feel first. And usually that's a good indicator what emotion you might be feeling. And once you identify that, then try to think about triggers behind it. Is it because someone yelled at you? Is it because you feel like someone disrespected you, for example, right? What's the triggers
Right.
behind it? And really work on, is it really anger that you feel threatened in your life? Or is it like different? Like maybe it could be shame when you feel like you've done something wrong, or maybe guilt. You feel like you have to make amends, apologize.
Yeah, and bringing a lot of guys on the podcast, one of the ones that they really talk about is sometimes either their parents died early,
Mm.
or I had another person told me that they grew up in a drug addicted family and where everyone was on substances, or the father wasn't even present. And as we look at a lot of studies and things like that, we know that there's not as many fathers in the home. So the clients that you work with, how active was like, or a role model was like a father or someone who took on that father role? Do you really see that they had that in your practice?
Honestly, no, not as much. Only a few ever has a positive like father models or father figures. Usually they're absent or they're like, emotionally distant, meaning that they're there to provide food on the table, look for there, but that's it. They don't provide any advice, they don't provide any skills, or sometimes even they can be abusive. So I feel like most of the men who come to me don't really have a positive like father figure in their life to teach them the way.
Wow, that's gotta be hard because I know how much our fathers have made an impact in our lives, and I know they
Yeah.
really advocated for you when you were in school and
Hmm.
needed that extra help. I will never forget the story you told me, and if I'm able to share it, I would love to share it. I remember when you were learning English for the first time because you didn't know any English when you came here from Korea. You knew zip, and
Yeah.
I will never forget this story because it made such an impact on me. Just how much, one, your father stood up for you, and two, how much of a struggle it is to learn a new language.
Mm.
And I remember Jay telling me when he was at school, he had a hard time spelling words. And I remember your teacher was like, well, you just had to study harder, do this harder. And I remember you weren't even allowed to use like a dictionary for something. And your dad had to go
Yeah.
up to your teacher and be like, listen, he's learning English. He didn't come from where they taught English. I mean, I know now in Korea that English is really becoming more of a popular language because it's so much interaction with business and just communications. But at that time, if I stand, let me know if I stand corrected. But at that time, did you take any English classes at all before you came to Korea?
A little bit. I knew some alphabets and hi and how are you. That was it. So
okay, so if that's your limit, right? That's your skill level.
Yeah.
Then like you need a dictionary. So a lot of times the dictionary should have been praised because like that's a skill. I mean, I remember being taught, I didn't know how to spell word. My parents were like, "Hey, go look it up in the dictionary." And I'm like, "Okay." Or try to figure out how to spell the word, and like you're looking up things. So, for you, I mean, just to imagine life when you didn't have your father kind of stand up and advocate for you.
Yeah, I don't know what I've done actually. If my father didn't stand up for me, I probably still suffer a lot, right? Because I didn't know English, but if I can use my dictionary, how am I supposed to look it up, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So how do you help men who grew up in like an abusive or absent father home? I mean, what do you do to help resolve that childhood trauma, since we know a lot of times start young?
I think a lot of things I recommend is actually think about your unmet needs you met, like you didn't get as a child. Did you want to feel comforted, right? Did you want to feel safe? Did you want to feel love? Because most men who go with a father, you probably usually didn't get that from their fathers, right? And imagine actually getting that. Or so you could be doing something you love, like you could be eating ice cream, right? Doing something like that. At the same time, if you're with kids and basically giving the needs to your kids that you didn't get as a kid, sometimes it really helps a lot too, because it's reducing that stigma, right?
Yeah, because I've had a few people on who were like, they had one person talking about how they had a hat and they picked out something and that was what bill was going to get paid. So, I mean, you imagine all that stress that people go through. So how do you, in addition to finding ways to meet that unmet need, do you really see them improving from that when they begin to learn how to be a father, learn how to be a man, whether it be more feminine or more masculine?
Yeah, so with that is probably a good therapy to really diving into like what needs you to get, right? As a father. At the same time, I think really learning some good parenting techniques can really helpful to right. So that if in case you have kids or not, you can actually really learn how to interact with not only to maybe your spouse, your partner, but also your kids. I think that'll be helpful. Like communication style, right? I think most people don't know how to communicate, especially with arguments, right? Conflicts is key to family, I think. But how you approach conflicts, I think that's where a lot of disagreements happen, or a lot of like heated arguments happen, breakup lines because of communication and conflicts. So I think that we need to learn how to conflict in a healthy way so that we can resolve it, rather than whether shutting it down or I don't want to talk about this or yelling at each other. Learning how to communicate, I think, is a key.
So do you find like a gender difference at all, like between how men communicate versus how females communicate?
Yeah, so often what I see is females tends to be like, hey, I want to solve this now, let's talk about it now kind of thing. I see that a lot. And I think males, because of that, they either, what I see is like overly acting, meaning they it's like, oh, you want to work on this, but you think I have you think there's a problem with me, so I think that they do that. Or I also see a lot of men actually shut down, meaning they don't know how to handle it, right? So they start distancing themselves, or they start like walking away, or they start watching TVs because they don't know how to handle it. So I've seen that a lot too.
So how do you work on that communication standpoint for them to kind of be able to address the issue that's at hand and to not like walk away?
Yeah, so if men start shutting down or feeling distant, we call it actually emotional flooding. That basically means that your emotion is way too high, it's way too intense. The brain physically cannot compute it, so your body actually shuts down. If that happens, no amount of talking will help you. You have to take a break and use like self-soothing skills. It could be like smelling something nice, or eating, or listening to calming music. And the study says a minimum of 20-minute break. If you shut down, minimum of 20. And then when you're ready, and this is a key, make sure to talk again. Don't just pretend this never happened. Make sure to talk about this issue that made you shut down. Make sure to talk about your person again.
Okay.
And that's why sometimes a lot of people make mistakes is they take a break and they just pretend it never happened. But I think that build resentment, right?
So it's kind of like we're never going to talk about this again, kind of put it, brush on the rug, if you will. So it seems to me like the break is really a temper, right?
Oh yeah, break is temporary. It tends to regulate you so that you're not gonna yell or shut down, right? Break is to reset so that when you go back to conversation again, you be more in calm manner and that you're able to communicate more logically.
Okay, cool. No, I like that. I like the idea how to use a break. And so what do you recommend people do on a break? I know you said self-soothing, like let's smell something nice, maybe getting some meal. How do you help like a guy actually use those skills and teaching them how to use those skills so that way they don't go in front of like sitting on the couch watching sports?
Yeah,
As
so
an example.
usually I ask them to do actually get away from the argument or get up in a conflict and basically walk away.
Okay.
And then you should talk to someone, hey, I'm doing this like in advance so they know what's going on. And wherever sometimes I have clients who just put on headphones, lay in bed and listen to calm music to help them calm down. Sometimes people just go take a walk around.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes people also just watch, basically something funny. So not any action, but something funny. They know they help them soothe and calm down. Sometimes people look at the ocean or like the video in the ocean. So anything like that to help you soothe and calm down.
No, that's awesome to use that break, then return back to the source of conflict to begin to work on what the issue is. And do you find like a lot of men are able to better control their emotions and to better be able to address issues like after they take that break and that they have, let's just say, more open ears to listen?
Yeah, I think once they actually calm down, I think they're able to take in like a lot more and without going like emotional overload, without being so angry or without being so guilt and shame. Yeah, I think they break it back or they take a break. It's more like a reset. It's not like they're more able to understand better if their emotions not as flooding and emotions not that intense. And I think they're able to communicate better that way too.
No, that's awesome. I like the way to use it. And, hopefully I'll be able to help someone who's watching this video to take a break. If you get upset, notice that your emotions have taken over. So is there like a term for that? Like I know you said emotional flooding, but it seems to be like sometimes there's like always like a deeper level to that of like when that emotional overhaul, when you flooded with nothing but emotions, what are some signs or things that you work on with men to really focus on like when this is happening? I know before you mentioned body sensations.
Yeah. So with this, actually, when people shut down, they often say that one of the first thing they feel is that they're looking at some of the argument, for example, but they can't really hear it. It's almost like your body's gone numb.
Okay.
Yeah, or you feel like you can't really feel anything in your body. So that's a lot of my clients say, and men say actually, right? About I feel kind of numb, I feel shutting down. So if that happens, right, then that's a sign, I'm getting shut down. So that's when you take a break. But also at the same time, what really helps in that mode is actually, I think emotional flooding, also known as hypoarousal. This is when your body is shutting down, you're feeling numb. Actually moving your body, like intense exercise, push up, that actually really helps your body. Or actually water, drinking water, any liquid, like water, pop, things like that. Because swallowing can actually slow down that feeling numb. It can actually slow down that.
Oh, okay. So it's more so, in addition to understanding where your body is, do something that's slower so that way the brain and the body gets a little bit slower so that way you begin to not emotional flood, kind of drain the flood, if you will.
Yeah, like moving your body, push up, or I have clients who do jumping jack.
No, that's awesome. So how do you practice some of these techniques just to help yourself keep yourself regulated and make sure you're not getting comfortable? Like what are some things, I'm kind of curious from your end of what you personally practice as well?
Yeah. So with emotions, I think most men and other people too, what they do is they react to emotions. other
Okay.
than responding to emotions. Right? So
Oh, yeah.
usually, if I'm struggling, when I'm okay, what am I feeling in my body, and what's my urge? Right? Do I have urge to yell? Do I have urge to hide? Do I have urge to scream? Like, what's my urge? Right? And if it's not that intense, if I can think logically, then I'm more like, okay, is giving to my urge and scream, yell, run away, whatever, is this going to help me in the long term? If I have to think logically, right? And that really helps them a lot. Like, am I be able to am I responding to it? Am I reacting to my emotions? And usually when it's hot in the moments, I think we tend to react rather than really think about and respond. If it's emotions are way too intense, then taking a break and using self-soothing, and once my emotions intensity gone down, then I really think about, okay, how do I react to this or respond to this? Is responding to it going to help me in the long term?
Okay. Good question. So you're looking at the urge.
Yes. I think
Okay.
most emotions have urge, right? Anger is to fight, scream. Anxiety usually to run away and hide. Shame is we tend to hide because of embarrassment. Guilt is we have to make amends, right?
All right. No, that's all good stuff. I mean, honestly, I mean, that's why you're the expert, right?
Right.
Been doing this for a long time and really helping a lot of people, and all the stories you told me over the years of how you made an
Yeah.
impact. And so how do you keep yourself fresh? Because I know, as you said, in the schools, it's like, well, I kind of felt like I mastered it, and I kind of felt like I wasn't really learning anything new. It was kind of the same thing, couldn't get to the deep root issue. What's kind of helped you to become a little bit more refreshed? Like, we are always learning, but you always have that like, excitement to help people, to serve people,
Yeah. So
excitement
what
to
I'm
hunger to learn.
Yeah, so what I'm doing is actually doing like more program or venturing into new program or venturing into new therapy skills or venturing into new population. I
Mm-hmm.
think that helps me stay fresh, learn more. So last year I went to adolescent conference and really learned about how to handle adolescents. And this year I went to adult, more older generation population, how to help them
Okay.
with aging population, but also with different like issues. For example, eating disorder. How do I treat eating disorder? So going to conferences like that and learning issues like that, I think that helps me stay fresh. So that I can talk to different populations I work with, like different populations I usually work with, so that I can try new things. I think that helps me stay fresh for a while.
Okay. So being having a little bit more generic, I don't want to say use what generic, but more general training, so
Yeah.
that you have more ranges than a school population when you're focusing solely on kids. You
Mm-hmm.
might focus on more on like more management and helping them maintain a classroom versus what's a technique that can help someone with eating disorders? What's a technique that can help me relate to adolescents? What's the technique that can help me relate to adolescents in 2024? I mean, it's completely time from when we were growing up. Much
Yeah.
more access to social media and different events, and
Yeah.
especially when you look at the like button.
Yeah, I think adolescence this year, 2024, is a lot more different than adolescence back in 2018, 2019.
So, what in that 6 year difference? What do you think the major difference is?
I think major difference is way more social media, like especially with population TikTok. I think what adolescents like have to feel like, okay, I have to do something more impulsive. I have to do something to get the views, right? And
Right.
also because they are more in TikTok or those like all these apps like Snapchat, for example, I think they're also a lot more danger, especially like all the people, adults that usually try and reach out to them. So I think they're more in danger than ever, I think. And also like social media can be both positive experience, but also negative experience, right? Especially with sometimes people post negative posts and then adolescents see it and you're like, oh man, I really feel bad because of it. And because as adolescents, I don't think they know yet how to handle their emotions, and social
Right.
media can just keep fitting into that.
Well, especially if one video is going to get you 10 likes and another one's going to give you 1,001, then you have to be a little bit more provocative to get the 1,000 likes versus the 10.
Yeah.
No, I noticed that because I talked to a lot of men who also struggle with like a lot of porn addictions and struggling with that. So I can't imagine. I mean, I know I was on TikTok for like a hot minute, but then got off it because all of a sudden it was so provocative. Like it was like wasn't even looking for that stuff. Don't do any of that stuff. But it's just like, where did this come from? And then you look on like a lot of Facebook reels, and even with them, there can be a lot of provocative stuff that sometimes I'll actually report, and it's like, nope, this video is fine. I'm like, how? Like this is, I can understand someone's like kind of shaking and swinging, but this is like pretty blatant obvious. Like, so, I mean, do you see a lot of men who kind of struggle with that and that shame?
Yeah, and also with the social media to provocative, I feel like with men's too is that I think sometimes because we watch this so much, we have like these thoughts, right? And it could be like, oh, because this is okay sometimes too, right? To act this way when you realize it, when you're trying to do this in public, it's not. So I think that it promotes that kind of behaviors when it shouldn't be, I think.
So how do you help someone like a man like work through that, especially where it feels like it's everywhere?
Yeah, it's often like, okay, so trying to think about the reason why they have it, right? Is it to help you out, or is it to help them get more views and actually have them set more realistic expectation about what they're seeing and the word out there? And sometimes I think helps a lot. Is I think most of the social media stuff to gain views, even porn, for example, they're very unrealistic just to get the views and help them understand the difference between the social media and the porn words versus the real words, and how the real, right? Your family, your friends, and how it acts around society is a lot more different than social media and how porn seems to be.
Yeah, understand the difference between what is reality and what's not. Yeah, kind of like one way I'll describe it is like they're actors, right? So they know what
they know what to say. They have a script, right?
Yeah,
exactly what to do. But in reality, you really don't. So
that's true. So I think that's the major difference is, people study things and they know what can get you going. So how do you help men? Because I know there's still that stigma sometimes about getting help and seeking help.
Yeah.
How do you, since you're doing a little bit more programs these days, what's something you've been doing to help just like destigmatize that it's okay to seek out help, it's okay to show emotions, and it's okay to have a support group for, let's say, men or something like that?
Yeah, it's often I think sometimes even having in groups really help, because especially groups of men like yours, right? Your group, I think it's really helpful to see, oh, I'm not the only man. I'm not the only person who's struggling with this. There are other men out there who really struggle. Sometimes I think it really helps a lot to help destigmatize is having a group of people around you that share your common values and they really want to work on that. So I think that's basically a key, like social connection and that support, like a tribe, right?
Yes.
I think that can be really powerful too, to help them destigmatize moving forward.
No, and it's been really impactful. So the group I run, the Men's Lifeline Academy group on Discord that we run, if you're interested, it'll be in the description below. So a little bit of a plug-in right there. So the group, we have one member who really struggled with, so they identify as more of a feminine male. And they really struggle with that because they love sports, right? They love football. But at times, because they're a little bit more feminine, so a little bit more on the emotional side, again, nothing wrong with that, just who they are. They really kind of struggle with that, like not always feeling like they fit in or they belong. So giving men, sometimes I found that sense of belonging, like it's okay to be feminine, watch football and be a little bit more in tune with your emotions. I mean, most guys are devoid of emotion sometimes.
Right.
And I mean, again, all men have emotions. It's just how is it portrayed? How is it used? How do you see it?
Right.
And because we're all emotional, social creatures. I mean, that's just how we're created to be. So for him, it was knowing that it's okay, but also putting that strategy of, let's focus on, because they also like to be encouraging too. So they like to encourage a whole bunch of people, which is fantastic. But sometimes people don't always respond well to that. So kind of like you, it's like working with them to feel like, it's great that you do this, but let's focus on the people who appreciate that versus not.
Right.
And that's what helps him be a part of the group and know that is having that sense of security that they can come, talk about things, talk about their frustrations. In our group, it's from a non-therapy standpoint. It's just from a coaching, mentoring type of program. So just to make that clear distinction between the groups.
Mm-hmm.
So, but no, I'm glad. No, I think men need a lot of group, and that's why there's a lot of support groups, whether it be for veterans, whether it be for anxiety,
Right.
whether it be for TREM. A lot of times with TREM, with the trauma recovery.
Mm-hmm.
I know you were part of TREM for a little bit. I know it's like what trauma recovery. Is it like?
I can't remember, but yeah.
So, but basically, that's something that's been. I know what we have, where I do, is I know we divide it both into men and women just to have that sense of support. Okay, so it's trauma recovery and empowerment model. I know the model part. I just remember the
yeah. I'm like, I forgot what the E stands for. I forgot about that. Okay, that's good to know.
So empowerment. So because people need to feel empowered, they need to feel like they have the capabilities to do it. And a lot of times, guys, it's like I feel like I don't have all my skill sets, or I need to have this perfect plan. Everything needs to be perfectly laid out. Where we all know success, progress is not a linear path.
Right.
Which is all about what you said, is about managing the expectations, knowing what's reality, what's not. And reality is life is not a straight path. It's full of bumps, curves, and hurdles. But it's facing that, like I know before the podcast, you're talking about how you started running again, and likewise for me. So kind of tell us about what got you into wanting to continue to get healthier and push yourself.
Yeah, so sometimes I think what helps people, like this is what I tell my parents to help them motivate to try new things, is sometimes you feel like you're doing stuff that you love, right? Like I've played video games and actually go on the lakes, but I also realized that I'm still feeling a little more stressed, meaning that, I feel good, but it's not bringing as much joy. To me, that means, okay, so this is my anchor. So I should continue to do it. At the same time, I should try new things to help me distress more. And that's why I'm motivated to learn, actually. And I should play pickleball. I play pickleball now. Try new things. Because I realize that things I used to do, it's not bringing as much joy as it used to be because I've done it for so long. So I knew that I needed change. So that's why I wanted to learn or play pickleball to bring some new fresh. And it's been helping me so far. So for those men out there who struggle, they feel like, oh man, like things I used to do, like watching sports, for example, I still like it, but it's not powerful enough, meaning it's not really helping distress more than it used to be. Then what I suggest is then that will help you try new things, see what does. So it's like a try and error.
Okay. Yeah, no, I mean, that's how kind of life is. You have to figure out what works and doesn't work. I know for you, video games worked out for quite well. Then all of a sudden, it just doesn't do it for it anymore.
Right, because I've played for a long time. So I'm like, I still play video games. I still love playing video games. At the same time, trying new things as well.
Yeah, so what got you into pickleball?
Yeah, so I used to play tennis a lot when I was young, but tennis is a bit hard for me because I had to learn a lot. But when I moved to Utah, I heard about everyone's playing pickleball in Utah. I guess it's popular. So I decided to keep, apparently it's a little popular. So I decided to give it a try. Yeah, and I actually like it more, especially when you play with people. So.
Yeah, actually, I played pickleball for the first time like a few weeks ago.
Oh, how was it? Do you like it?
It was good. It was a little bit different. I mean, I played tennis once before that, like about a year ago. That I'm going to get more. Ironic, I'm going to get more involved in tennis. So, but with pickleball, it was good. It wasn't as much running as tennis, so I will agree with that. So it's a small court. It's about half the size.
Yeah.
But I still had a good sweat for an hour.
And I think I liked it too because with pickleball, you usually play with 3 other people. So I think you can build a connection that way too. Because I think with tennis, usually just one other person. And it can be very competitive, where pickleball can be just played for fun. And you guys both have a good time. So I think I like pickleball more.
So you find people who play pickleball let's say the ones who play for fun and don't, because I know actually my supervisor does pickleball in like tournaments and things like that. So she's a little bit more competitive. So, but for you, you find like people who just play for fun are like a little bit more easygoing.
Yeah, more easygoing. They can laugh about it if they lose. They're not gonna like throw their rackets and scream something like that. I actually happened that once, but.
Well, it's kind of hard. It's more of a paddle, so it's not really a racket. So the racket you can just boom versus a paddle.
Yeah, well paddle just bounce back and forth, but yeah.
Well, hopefully you don't see that too much, and he'll be like, "Hey, be careful to the paddle." The paddle.
Careful with that. Maybe you should learn some skills.
Maybe some skills. Well, hey, who better than Jay to teach you some skills?
Thank you. Thank
So,
you.
and I know that you started your own company, so we want to highlight also Choices Therapy, which is Jay's company that he founded this year. So, I mean, that's a pretty big step to open up your own private practice. It's a lot of work and a lot of preparation to do that. So, what's kind of like, what's like, how'd you come up with healing? Or I'm sorry, choice. Wait, is it healing choices or choice?
Yeah, healing choices therapy.
Healing choices therapy.
Yeah, I knew
How'd you come up with that name and what led you down that path?
Yeah, because with name, I wanted to do something with my last name because my last name is Cho.
Okay.
Yeah, so healing Cho is this therapy, and
Oh,
also I see, but also because I feel like name fit because I want to help heal people, right? I want to help them find their journey in healing and empower them and move forward. That's why I chose the name. And why I wanted to do private practice is why I love my full-time job. I also felt like I want to try something different, and I want to see because I want to have more control over what kind of clients I see. I want to have clients over how many hours of work. So I also wanted to do that way. That's why I wanted to venture it out and try it.
okay. Wow, that's quite brave and ambitious of you to want to open up your own private practice to help. So, what kind of people do you see then in your company?
Yeah, you 13 and up usually.
13 and up. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Right now I'm saying adults,
adolescents
but
to older adults.
adolescents to adults. Yeah. And
Now,
usually with trauma, ADHD. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna ask you, do you focus on a certain group? Like, so it looks like you get into anxiety, ADHD.
Yeah. So anxiety, ADHD, trauma, depression. Those are usually those 4 areas.
Okay. No, I think those are huge, especially now where numbers always going up, never have no not going down, especially with the way
Right.
the state of the world is, communities are, and things like that, and stress of just the daily life. So I'm glad that they have you, Jay, and I'm glad that you got Healing Choices Therapy that's located in Utah, and that description will be in below. So that way, if you need some help, if you're in the Utah area, and you're like, hey, Jay, I'm watching this podcast, and listen, I heard you can heal me. Let me get your services. So go check him out. I mean, Jay's a great guy. He works really, really hard. I've known him since 2015, so going on 9 years.
Wow, it's been that early. Wow.
9 years this fall because we met
Oh,
in
that's true.
Ripple's class.
Yeah, like fall. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've known him for many years, and we kind of took the same path of being both school social workers, then therapist, and now Jay's going towards more the independent therapy world of having his own practice in addition to running programs now, and obviously how my path is being laid out, still being in therapy and still doing my own company of helping more so focus on men not to have that shame and guilt and to live the best life possible. As we always like to say, live a life worth living, which is a very key model, and to become the best version of yourself. And so really look up Jay. I know he's not in any socials, but I do know he has his private practice. So Jay, just want to give you that shout out. I want to thank you for coming on the podcast. I want to thank you for all the expertise. This great conversation that we had about men and how we can help men. How can we reduce the stigma so men can seek out help from a therapy standpoint and understand that we need to be aware of our bodies, our body language, our body tones, because that's going to produce the action of what we do next.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
So hold on a second there, Jay. Before we kind of wrap things up, what would you like to tell someone, a man who's struggling today? What would you like to tell them?
Yeah, so often when you're struggling, you feel like you're in a tunnel, right? And it's dark, and you want to go forward, but you don't know when it's gonna be end, kind of thing, right? And I want to say just keep moving forward, even though it's dark, because I assure you there will be light at the end of the tunnel. You just have to keep going.
That's right. Just keep on going. What a way to end it. You heard it from Jay. He's the expert. He studied this, and he helps people on a daily basis. So go check him out. Hope everyone has a great day. And remember, if you need help, guidance, check out Jay because he's the man with a plan. If you're a man seeking to be part of a group, we got the Men's Lifeline Academy. We can meet, talk about it. That's all in the description below. And above all else, have a blessed day. Bye.